good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whenever the fuck you're listening, watching, whatever. Welcome to another episode of Tailgate Trash Talk, Season 2, baby. I got my main man, Gary. Gary, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing good, man. Had a lot of shakeup in the playoff. It's going to be interesting to talk about this week for sure.
Absolutely. Gary Free Sr., welcome back, good sir. Thank you again for joining. Without further ado, Gary, you mentioned it. We had a lot of shakeup. So let's just get right down, nitty gritty style here. Week 10 preview or review here. Started off Oregon State, Washington. This was a close game, but we both picked Washington on this one. They came out victorious by a field goal. The ranking for the Beavers was short-lived.
I expected a little more offense from this game, to be honest. I didn't expect this to be in the 20s. I thought this would be in the 30s with these two teams. I know Oregon State kind of hangs their hat a little more on defense than Washington, but I just figured Washington's high-powered offense was going to put up 30-some points, and Oregon was just going to be able to move the ball in that Washington defense. A little more of a defensive struggle than I thought it was going to be, but yeah, you said it. This outcome is kind of what we expected.
Yeah, absolutely. So, not a shocker there. Moving on to Saturday, Ohio State Northwestern. This game was one of those where it was a 30-point spread.
Yeah.
At Northwestern, you obviously took Ohio State and the points.
I did lay the points. I did not know there was going to be 45-mile-per-hour wind.
I did, and I saw the weather forecast, and I was like, you know what? That's going to hamper them.
Yeah, I should have checked that forecast.
You should have.
I honestly still thought Ohio State was going to be able to run the ball. The Fighting Fitz has put up a good fight in this one. Northwestern is one of those teams. They've struggled quite a bit this year, but they're a team that they can sneak up on you a little bit. They'll play some tough, hard-nosed football, and if you let them hang around, they can put a little bit of a scare in you. And I don't know that anybody was really scared that Ohio State might lose this game, but I think the look is that they've got a really big matchup coming up with Michigan, in the next couple of weeks, and this is not a game you can hang your hat on and say, this is one that we can put a stamp on our season. This is one you learn from, and you chalk it up as bad weather, and you hope you can move on and get back to what Ohio State had been doing to this point.
Yeah, and this was a close game for the majority of the game until late. And they pulled away from it, but only by 2 scores. But still,
yeah.
Texas Tech, TCU 34-24, a little bit closer, than I think we both anticipated. But nonetheless, TCU remains unbeaten, going into this week's matchup with Texas.
Yeah, I mean, they ended up covering still. I think it was, 7.5, I believe the spread was. They ended up covering, but it wasn't – you were sweating it. If you wagered that spread, you were sweating. So Texas Tech was game in this game. And what we've seen from TCU this year is kind of what we saw in this game, right? They struggle a bit defensively. They go through some lulls offensively, but then they can explode. And that's what they did for Texas, with Texas Tech. And they ended up pulling away late to win by 10. Closer than I think we both thought it would be. And this is one that maybe it was a little bit of a trap game for them with Texas coming up, especially after they've already played a bunch of really good, Big 12 teams, bunch of ranked teams already.
Yeah. So moving on, North Carolina, Virginia, 31-28. North Carolina comes out on top. This one was a lot closer, than we both definitely anticipated. North Carolina comes out on top, though, and Drake May takes care of business there for the Tar Heels.
Pucker factor was real for the Tar Heels. Holy cow. UVA is not a very good football team this year. Really surprised by this score. Playing in Charlottesville, I get it. You got the home field advantage, but, man, UNC should have, in my opinion, rolled by at least a couple of scores here.
Yeah, absolutely. Tulane, Tulsa. Tulane getting the victory 27-13. Not a shocker there by any means. I don't think so.
No. I mean, Tulane's a good team. It's clear that, we 2 weeks ago said they might be one of those flash in the pan teams that short-lived in the top 25, but they're a good football team. That offense has some real firepower to it, and I think that they're gonna turn out to be the class of that conference.
Yeah. So far, Gary, we're 5-0.
Yeah.
On the week, and then we get to the big game of the weekend and probably of the season so far, besides the Tennessee Alabama game.
Yep.
And Tennessee goes down to Athens as the number 1 team, and they come out with a loss. The Dogs come out victorious 27-13. What's your takeaway from this game, Gary?
My takeaway from this game is that Georgia's defense is much better than they've looked at times. They got up for a big game, and they really put the clamps down on Hendon Hooker. A little rainy. Maybe that had a little bit to do with some of the struggles that they had offensively.
That wasn't until later on in the second half, though.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, they didn't look good in the first half either. So that Georgia defense is real. They lost a bunch of guys to the NFL. Maybe early in the season, you started to see a little bit of kind of let down after the big game early. In the first week of the season, there were a couple games where you're like, wow, Georgia's giving up a lot of points here to a team they shouldn't. But when it matters, they turn it on. They turn it on, and that defense has so many fucking fast, big dudes again this year. They're doing a really good job of restocking the cupboard there. Kirby Smart's doing a hell of a job sealing the deal with a lot of big-time recruits and really keeping that defense humming. Stetson Bennett, he manages that offense, makes some big throws here and there. I think what he brings to the table for Kirby as well is a maturity level that Kirby can fix things and address them mid-game, and he goes and puts it on the field, whereas young guys can kind of get hangdog about it when a coach is getting on them in the middle of a game. Stetson doesn't do that. He goes out, fixes it. There were a couple times when he made a high throw here, made a bad read there. Kirby got on him. You could see it on the sideline. And Stetson played a good game, and he fixed those things mid-game. And Georgia's going to be tough to beat, man. They're going to be really, really tough to beat.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seemed like from the get-go, Tennessee offensively just did not get in sync, did not get in rhythm. Hendon was throwing balls high and missing some guys, but that was because he was getting pressured a lot early too. And so, yeah, this game ended up being, the score that it was because of the late touchdown by Tennessee.
Yeah, this was worse than a 14-point game.
Yeah, it was. It was. So,
and you and I talked about that during the game. The high throws. Hooker's a very tall quarterback when he's in the pocket anyway, and when his footwork gets disrupted, like you said, they were putting pressure on him. If he gets happy feet, you can see he sails balls, and we see that a lot from young quarterbacks in the NFL. It's a fixable thing, but it's something he's going to have to work on. If he's going to be successful at the next level, he's going to have to fix that because you can't be inaccurate at the NFL level. He got away with some because it's college and whatnot, but windows close very quickly. Guys don't miss interceptions at the next level, so he's going to have to figure that out between now and when he starts playing ball in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. Nonetheless, still a great game as far as watching goes.
Yeah.
So
a lot of energy there too.
There was a lot of energy.
You could tell it was number 1 against number 3.
Absolutely. Yeah. So first loss of the weekend there for us. Oh well, we'll live and move on. Oregon, Colorado, not a shocker here, other than maybe it should have been more than 39 points. That Oregon won by 49-10. Oregon comes out victorious and keeps that lone loss to Georgia, first game of the season, intact there. Really nothing else from this game other than Colorado's just bad.
They're not good. Yep.
Moving on, Penn State, Indiana, Penn State 45-14. Not a shocker there, other than I think, maybe the point spread.
I thought they'd keep it a little closer. honestly. Indiana's a tough team, especially at home. Penn State went in and beat the brakes off of them. And it looks like this is a year where you can really say the Big Ten has maybe enough strength at the top to compete with what we normally see from the SEC at the top of that conference. The Big Ten's got Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State. We've talked about it. When's the drop off going to come? Right. This is what happens with James Franklin. We're not seeing it this year, right?
Yep.
We're not seeing it this year. So really, right now, you're looking at a Big Ten that's got 3 at the top that really probably could stack up against maybe the 3 big dogs in the SEC.
Yeah, possibly. All right, moving on. Michigan State, Illinois, and this was the week, Gary. That
oh my God!
This was the week that we both got on the Illinois train.
Finally gave them some respect, and what do?
They shit it down the bed, and Michigan State comes out victorious, 23-15. And did not see this one coming.
No. Michigan State's not been good this year either, and Illinois has been a lot better than expected. And this was a big letdown, especially in Champaign.
Yeah.
It's a tough one. I don't know what happened. Honestly, it seemed like Michigan State was able to move the ball when you wouldn't have expected them to, because Illinois' defense coming into the game was like a top 5 defense in terms of yards per play and points per game. Ooh, unexpected. Michigan State gets probably, a season-saving maybe win to say that they got a win over a ranked opponent here in the Big Ten. Not been a good year for them after big year last year. Kenneth Walker, Heisman contender, and the big contract extension for, the old ball coach. But this has been a very disappointing season, and maybe this is a win you can hang your hat on and say, okay, maybe we can get better next year, right? Maybe we can get better next year. Am I being optimistic?
I'm being real optimistic. But you need to, because you signed that coach to a $95 million.
Oh my God! You fucking better hope you can turn it around.
Moving on, Okie State, Kansas.
Good Lord!
Another one. I can't remember who you picked on this one, Gary.
I think I'd have to look back. I don't have my picks in front of me. I think I picked Kansas, but I can't say that with a lot of certainty. But I know that I didn't expect this to be a runaway game for Oklahoma State because they were the favorite. This was bad. Again.
Gundy needs to do something here.
I don't know what's going on there, man.
I don't know either.
I just don't know.
I mean, you can't go after his players because they're boys. He's a man. A man.
He's what, 45 now?
Something.
I don't know. I don't know. This one confuses me. This season for Oklahoma State confuses me because they brought back so many people from last year's team that was a top 5 defense in all of college football, the best defense in the Big 12 by a good margin, and they've been awful on that side of the ball. Spencer Sanders has bailed them out in a lot of games this year. The last 2 weeks, he hasn't been able to do it, and we see what's gone on the field. Last week, they got smashed, 49-0. This week, they get boat raced by Kansas. It's not good there in Stillwater.
No, I just don't know what's going on there.
Man.
Oh, but Syracuse, Pitt. Syracuse is the team that we thought they were.
Yeah.
Pitt gets the victory 19-9.
Yeah. Syracuse can't move the ball. I don't know what happened on offense, to be honest. I thought with Syracuse, with them losing games, I thought I started a few weeks ago saying, okay, well, the clock's going to strike midnight on this Cinderella. I thought that they would score points, but they wouldn't be able to stop anybody because their defense is so undersized. They don't have a lot of speed, team speed, like a lot of teams do. The offense has been bad the last couple of weeks, and I'm not sure what it is because Schrader was great for the first half of the season, and I thought he'd keep it going, but they would struggle defensively. It's been the exact opposite. The defense has been fine the last couple of weeks, especially against Clemson when they should have won that game. So, and it's it's disappointing. But like you said, they're the team we thought they were. We said it a few weeks in a row that Syracuse probably isn't a top 15 team. They're probably not even a top 25 team, and we see that now.
Yeah, absolutely. UCF, Memphis. UCF comes out on top 35-28. Another good game, another good victory there for the Knights of Central Florida. Alabama, LSU. 32-31 LSU in overtime. So you and I were having the conversation throughout the entire game here. You got to give credit where credit's due. Give credit to LSU. Give credit to that defense. Give credit to the offense and Jaden Daniels. And give credit to Brian Kelly.
Hang those nuts out there, bud.
Absolutely.
Hang those nuts out there. We're going for 2.
And so this is another recurring theme for Alabama this season. Undisciplined.
Yep.
Too many penalties.
Yep.
And then
bonehead plays too.
Unsportsmanlike
conduct, personal fouls, dead ball fouls. Yeah. Not characteristic of Alabama.
No, not at all. Not at all. And then we were talking about it throughout the game. Bryce Young just didn't look like Bryce Young.
Nope.
His throws were high. He wasn't seeing some of his open receivers. But that's because LSU was getting a lot of pressure on him early and often. Give him credit though. He stood in there.
Oh yeah.
Excuse me. And he gave Alabama a chance.
He took a beating too.
Yes, he did.
He took a beating in this game and he gave him a chance late, got him the lead. And you talked about the undisciplined nature. The defense went out, committed a big penalty on that last drive for LSU to keep the drive alive. They go down, score a touchdown. Brian Kelly says, "We're going for the win. We're going for the win. Going for the win." And they got 2. Very uncharacteristic Alabama season, not just game. We've talked about it multiple times this year that they have not looked like a Saban coached team at times. And I wonder how much NIL has to do with it, how much the transfer portal stuff has to do with it. He doesn't have the thumb on all the players like he normally does. But you got to give credit to LSU. I didn't think they had a chance in this game. And I still have a bet to pay up. John, if you watch this later, I do owe you an LSU jersey on the show. I was not able to get one. And unfortunately, we're not able to stream to YouTube tonight. So John may not see this, but I will pay up when John watches the episode next week.
Yeah. So I have 2 questions for you here. Last week during our episode, we both did not think that LSU was the 10th ranked best team in the country. Do you think that now? Do you think that they are deserving of where they are now? And then, excuse me. And then second question is Alabama has 2 losses going into November. They could easily have 4 losses.
Oh yeah. Texas and Texas A&M, absolutely.
Do you see Alabama being a 3, possibly 4 loss team when it's all said and done this year?
So, to your last question, I think their schedule is quite a bit lighter down the stretch. I think they have Ole Miss, I think, still on the schedule. So maybe they're able to run it out.
They have Ole Miss this week.
I think you're right. I thought that they were on the schedule when I was looking ahead, but
Alabama, Ole Miss this week.
Yeah, so I think it's very possible that they could be a 3-loss team, and that'd be really unheard of for a Nick Saban team. And then maybe the 4th loss comes in a bowl game, depending on who they get matched up against. But I think it's very realistic. My only worry, if I'm calling for an Ole Miss upset over Alabama, is Ole Miss at times has just checked out of games. So maybe Bama benefits from that. It is a very strange season for Alabama. As far as LSU goes, I have to give them credit, right? I have to. At some point, I can talk about the eyeball test all I want, and they're still a 2-loss team that has a win over Bama, and they control their own fate in the SEC West, and they could end up in the playoff with 2 losses, be the first 2-loss team in the playoff. If they go win the SEC crown, they're in the playoff, right? There's no question they're in the playoff if they go win the SEC crown. So they are. I have to give credit to what they did this past weekend. They've been able to kind of stack wins as they've gone throughout the season. I still eyeball test. I don't know that I call them one of the 10 best teams in the country. However, the reality is that they just continue to beat teams, and they just beat Bama, who I thought still had a chance to get into the playoff, by way of running the table potentially. So I've got to give credit. I have to say, yes, LSU is a top 10 team. They might be a top 5 team, honestly. And if they just continue to stack wins, they're going to be one of the 4 best teams in the country at the end of the season.
All righty. All right. Texas, Kansas State, 34-27. Kansas comes out on top over K-State. I can't remember who I had on this one. Kansas State had a chance to tie the game up there at the end, and Martinez fumbled the ball there.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
But they did come back. They were down, I think, by at least 10, maybe 14 or so. And K-State did make a comeback here towards the end. So give them credit for making a comeback. But Texas is looking better. They're looking better. They're not great in my opinion. Still,
aren't there times throughout the course of a game that you're like, man, maybe Texas is back?
Yeah.
And then they go do something, and you're like, man, maybe not yet.
Not yet.
They are really kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde team.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So Clemson, Notre Dame. Notre Dame took it to the number 4 team, who we thought was definitely not the number 4 team, and rightfully so. It showed.
Yep.
Notre Dame came out on top, 35-14. They got on them early and often, and really this wasn't even a ball game.
No, it really was.
At one point in time, it was 28-0.
Yeah, it was not a ball game. Clemson got a couple of garbage time touchdowns late to make it maybe respectable, if you want to call that respectable. This is a Notre Dame team that literally had the game plan against Syracuse of, we don't want them on offense. We're just going to run the ball. And this team put up 35 against Clemson and was up 28-0 against Clemson. They had no respect for DJ, no respect for the passing game. They were jamming the box and really just challenging Clemson to do something. Do something, like poking him with a stick. Like, just do something, man. Yeah. DJ's not the guy. He's not the guy. And we've seen it week after week after week after week. He's not the guy. And Dabo has now paid for his loyalty to DJ.
He has. And during this game, I messaged you. Why is DJ still in the ball game? Is it for punishment?
Maybe. I don't know.
You're in the 4th quarter. You're down 28 points. Like, why is he still in there?
Yeah.
Why?
I didn't know.
That baffles me.
I didn't understand. There's almost no way Clemson gets back in the playoff picture now.
No. Nope.
You can't get boat raced by a 3-loss team.
No.
And expect to get back in playoff consideration.
Michigan, Rutgers, Michigan 52-17. Michigan took it to them.
There was like a 10-minute span of this game where it went from Rutgers literally had a lead 17-14, and then they were down 42-17. It was unbelievable how quickly there was they had a big run for a touchdown and then a pick six, I believe, and then another big. It went from oh my God, Rutgers has got them on upset alert, and then suddenly it's no, never mind. Back to Texas.
Arizona, Utah 45-20. Not a shocker here.
Oh.
Utah gets the dub. They're at home. Wake Forest, NC State. NC State comes out on top here, 30-21. And this is a shocker to me, shocker to you. We thought Wake Forest was going to take it to NC State there, have a bounce back week. Not so much. Not
so much at all. It was a really, really good game by an NC State offense that's pretty undermanned right now. They had a good game, and I know Wake Forest, right? We've talked about how bad their defense can be at times, but not the outcome I expected. I thought Sam Hartman was going to be able to put up 30, 40 points on NC State.
Absolutely. Cal, USC, this was a lot closer than we both anticipated here because Cal's not that good. USC 41-35. And this one kind of came down to, to the wire there. But USC comes out on top.
Yeah. Remember the Arizona game against USC where USC just decided that defense was optional?
Yeah.
This felt like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really did. Yeah. Cal just kept scoring, and then USC would come back and score. Okay, USC's going to put their foot down, right, at some point? No, they didn't. They never did. And this game ended up really weird. Really weird. I would not have at all expected Cal to stay within 20.
Yeah, absolutely. So, shocker there, but USC gets the win.
Yep.
Last game of the night, UCLA, Arizona State. UCLA comes out on top 50-36. Fighting Chippers.
Fighting Chippers, putting on points. Another leave your defense at home game, too. Apparently the Pac-12 decided, we're not going to play defense.
Defense is optional this year.
DTR had another big game. I think if UCLA can stay as a one-loss team, we're going to see him get back into consideration for, potentially kind of a dark horse Heisman candidate. I think the Heisman is starting to shake out and really filter itself, but there's some interesting prospects for some consideration later in the year. And DTR is still one of those names that maybe later in the year, if UCLA continues to win games, we might see him get some national attention.
All righty. That does it for the review of last week's games. Let's take a quick sponsor break before we get into this week's preview. Sponsors brought to you by PocketPairClub.com. Pocket Pair Club, club number 26881. PocketPairClub.com. All right. That sponsor break was brought to you by PocketPairClub.com. Pocket Pair Club, club number 26881 for all of your gambling needs. Please gamble responsibly. All righty. Let's get into another great week of college football where every game matters. Week 11, baby. Starting off Friday, USC, Colorado. USC is a 34-point favorite here. Defense is optional, Gary. Who do you got?
Yeah, for sure. If USC has any aspirations of potentially sneaking in to a playoff spot, winning out in the Pac-12, they've got one more big game against Oregon. They've got to blow out Colorado. Honestly, it's time to start earning the style points. Colorado's so bad. We just saw Oregon blow them out by 39. I think they ended up beating them by, and I think USC is going to do similar. Probably not quite 39. Maybe lay the points, but it might be a sweat.
All right, yeah, I'm going USC on this one too. Colorado's just bad.
Yeah.
So, all right, moving on. Nebraska travels to the Big House, Michigan. Michigan is a 29.5 point favorite.
How disrespectful is that number as a Nebraska fan?
I mean, it is what it is, bud.
Yeah.
When's the last time Nebraska, won a good ball game?
Yeah, it's been a tough year for sure.
Tough few years, bud. Tough few. We're on year 5.
I'm trying to be nice.
Year 5.
I mean, Michigan has, I think, proven this year that they can win the style of football that they want to play. And I think that's going to be tough for a Nebraska defense that at times has been really susceptible to the run. Blake Corum could have a big game here, and Michigan might roll and cover that number.
Yeah, it's look, I'm a Nebraska fan through and through here, but you gotta be realistic. Doubtful your starting quarterback Casey Thompson plays again this week. One of your starting defensive backs is suspended because of stupid DUI over the past weekend. And like you said, they've been susceptible, whatever that word. Their defense was on the field way too much last week in that second half. Can't happen. It can't happen. You can't have your defense out there for basically the entire second half and expect to win a ball game. Yet they were within a score. Man, you hate to do it. But I'm going to, baby, because Nebraska, we're going to have an upset. We need an upset.
30-point upset. Let's go.
I'm just going to pick them.
Let's go.
It's going to be a big upset. Big upset, and it's going to ruin Harbaugh's chances for a playoff. Because you want to know why? Because fuck Harbaugh.
Fuck Harbaugh.
Oh,
I love that energy.
Ohio State, Indiana. Ohio State. Wow. 40-point spread here.
It's at the Horseshoe, and Penn State just beat Indiana by 31 at home. And Indiana was home. 40 might not be enough unless there's some bad weather in Columbus. I think Ohio State wants to make a statement after that tough win over Northwestern. 40 might not be enough. I feel bad for Indiana, honestly, because they're so outmanned.
I'm going 28. I'm going 28 here.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah. Missouri, Tennessee, 20.5 point favorite. They fall to number 5.
Yeah.
They fall to number 5 after that loss to Georgia. I'm going Tennessee here. I'm back on the Tennessee. I'm not falling off ship yet.
No.
Yeah.
I got Tennessee by a lot. 20's not enough. I would have laid up to probably 34.
Okay. All righty. All right. LSU, Arkansas. At Arkansas, LSU is a 3-point favorite. Wow. This is just baffling to me. Just baffling. Number 7 team, 2-loss team, going against a 5-4 Arkansas team, a 3-point favorite? Vegas, what are you telling me?
Vegas is telling me that my eyes don't deceive me. Woo pig, buddy.
Woo pig.
Woo pig. Woo pig. Arkansas is going to redeem me from last week, bad mouth in LSU. Arkansas knocking off LSU at home. Yeah, buddy. Woo pig.
I'm with you, bud. I'm with you. Woo pig suey here. Woo
Yep.
pig suey.
Yep. This isn't a night game in Death Valley. Woo pig.
All right, Notre Dame, Navy. Notre Dame, 16.5-point favorite. It's Veterans Week.
It is.
Day after Veterans Day.
It is.
Are you going with your your military branch here?
I am not.
Okay. Didn't think so.
Navy's not good this year, honestly. That spread is, I think it'll be that probably. Notre Dame might win by 13 or so. That's probably a good number. I think they're both going to run the ball a ton. Obviously, Navy runs the triple option. Notre Dame has proven this year that they don't believe in their quarterback. They're going to run the ball quite a bit. Notre Dame will roll, though, by a couple scores.
All right, I'm with you. Purdue, Illinois. At Illinois, Illinois is 6.5-point favorite here.
How is Illinois still in the top 25?
Gary, they are, bud.
How?
Why don't you ask the committee?
Spoiler makers, bud.
Yes.
Spoiler makers.
Thank you.
Let's go.
I'm with you there. Vandy, Kentucky, 18-point favorites.
That's not enough. Kentucky's going to roll. Vandy's not a good football team. They've gotten boat raced multiple times this year.
I'm going to go with you again. Give me Kentucky. Give me the points. Alabama, Ole Miss. Alabama. This is at Ole Miss. Alabama, 12-point favorite here.
That number is so wild. Who wants to play save it after a loss, though? Mike Leach doesn't.
No.
I don't think Lane Kiffin does either. I've got Bama winning this one. We just talked about it a little bit ago. I do think if Bama can get past this one, they probably run the table and they're a 2-loss team. This seems like the only one on their schedule that could be a trip up, being in Oxford. But I just don't see it. I think Saban is going to get a little bit of something out of the guys this week in practice and redeem from the loss last week. I still believe that there's very few things in this world that you should absolutely 100% be afraid of, and one of those is playing Bama after a loss.
I'm going to disagree with you.
Uh-oh.
Normally, you'd be correct. Be afraid of Bama after a loss. This year, not so much.
They did just lose their old coordinator, too.
Who?
Bill O'Brien, he hasn't left yet, but Bill O'Brien will be departing.
To where?
Auburn.
I did not hear that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me double check that because
Yeah,
he may have the gun.
I've not seen that news. I've not seen that news yet tonight.
Let me make sure.
But in the words of Lane Kiffin, get your popcorn ready. I'm going Rebels here, baby. I'm going Rebels.
Oh man.
Yeah, I'm going Rebels.
Okay. House divided.
Yeah. Louisville, Clemson, 7-point favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Clemson bounces back and wins this game, but not convincingly. Probably by 4, maybe 6. Take the points if you're going to bet Louisville. Things aren't right down at Clemson. So if they stay with DJ, especially, they may get this game because they're able to run the ball and play some defense. But it's not good. It's not good in Clemson.
Yeah. I'm gonna go. I'll go with you on that one as well. I'll go Clemson.
Dottie.
Golly, Just wants to play a little fetch here. Come on, Dad.
Yeah.
Get out. Get out. We're podcasting. All right. Maryland, Penn State. Penn State, 10-point favorite here at home. Give me Penn State on this one.
Yeah. By more than 10. Probably
I'm going 17.
17. Yep. I like that number.
All righty. Boston College, NC State. NC State is a 19-point favorite. You know, Boston College is pretty bad this year. So I'm going to say I'll go that.
Yeah. I like what I saw from NC State's offense last week. It seems like they've got a little something going after the injury to Leary. Yeah. Lay those points. Yep. They should bowl.
UCF, Tulane. Top 25 matchup between these two.
Yeah.
Tulane is a 2-point favorite here.
I'm a believer. Give me Tulane. Probably by a field goal, maybe 6. But yeah. Give me Tulane.
I'm going to go UCF by 10.
Okay. All right.
By 10 here.
All right.
Georgia, Mississippi State. Georgia, 16.5-point favorite. Yeah. Take it.
Georgia by a handful.
Yeah. Another top 25 matchup. Washington, Oregon. Oregon, 12.5-point favorite here. I'm sorry, 13.5. At home.
I like what they've got going offensively, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll take it. Yeah, I'll take it.
Yep. Absolutely.
Kansas State, Baylor. Baylor, unranked team here, 2.5-point favorite.
Yeah.
In Waco.
Yeah.
Okay.
Baylor and Waco by at least a field goal.
You know, I'm liking where we're going here tonight. You know, I like Baylor here as well.
Yep.
Give me Baylor.
Awesome.
TCU, Texas. Texas, 7-point favorite at home.
This is a weird number from Vegas, isn't it?
Right at 7, baby. Right at 7.
Weird number from Vegas. I feel like they know something we don't because TCU they've beaten a ton of ranked teams. They just keep winning games. Essentially this game really for me it comes down to whether I believe Quinn Ewers is going to be able to play the type of football he's capable of or not. Because Duggan and that TCU offense, they're going to score points. Can Texas score points with them? I think Bijan Robinson is going to have a really good game against an undersized UD. I'm going with Texas. I know it's not the upset pick. I know it's an upset in terms of ranking, but I'm going with Texas, and I hate that I'm doing that because I've been saying the last 2 weeks, like, why is TCU so low? Why is TCU so low? Now they're finally in the top 4, and I'm going to pick Texas to fucking beat them.
Give me TCU. Give me the Horned Frogs.
All right.
House divided. North Carolina, Wake Forest. Wake Forest, 3.5-point favorite. Man. This one's a tough one for me. I want to say Wake here.
Okay. I'll go the other way. Last week really soured me on Wake.
Yeah, same here. That's why.
I'm
going Wake.
This is going to be a shootout. This is one of those games that's going to be really exciting to watch. But give me UNC. You know, maybe last team that has the ball wins, and UNC has the ball last.
Yeah. All righty. Florida State, Syracuse. Florida State, 6.5-point favorite here. Florida State getting ranked again.
Sure.
Syracuse. I don't like that. I don't like my pick. I just don't like Florida State.
I don't think either of these teams are any good.
No.
I'm with you. I'm going to go Syracuse. I'm going to go homer pick.
Yeah.
Let's go. Syracuse. Let's go.
Stanford, Utah. Utah, 24-point favorite.
Most years, I would say 24 points is too much against Stanford. Not this year.
Not this year. Yeah.
Not this year.
Yeah, definitely not.
Utah's going to roll.
Yeah. Arizona, UCLA. UCLA, 19.5-point favorite.
Yeah. UCLA might score 60 against this Arizona defense, honestly.
Well, Pac-12 defense is optional.
Yeah, exactly.
All righty. That is our top 25 preview for this week's games. Got a bunch of good games this weekend, again, as always, and another time of year where all the games matter. A slip up here could cost a team a chance at the playoffs. So, all right, let's move it all along, and we have our salute to service.
All right, this week's episode goes out to Army Chief Warrant Officer 2, Marwan Gabor. CWO2 Gabor died November 12th, 2020, serving during Task Force Sinai. At the time of his death, CWO2 Gabor was 27, hailed out of Marlborough, Massachusetts, died in a helicopter crash while on a peacekeeping mission on Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. CWO2, this was his first overseas assignment as well. That's a pretty disappointing first tour. Guys go overseas all the time and hate to see it. But this week's episode, Army Chief Warrant Officer 2, Marwan Gabor, till Valhalla, we have the watch.
All righty. Let's move it on along to our last segment of the show, our Heisman stock report. And just like in football, we have moving weeks. We had a moving week in the Heisman stock report.
Yes, we did.
Gary, I was giving you a bunch of shit for it. Because basically you had like all 5 of yours moved. I had 2, maybe 3. I can't remember anymore. But nonetheless, we have some different guys in the stock report this week. So at number 5, Gary, you have Stetson Bennett, the Georgia Bulldogs. I got Bo Nix.
Yeah, it's about time I give Studson some credit here, right? You've had him in the stock report every week. I just like the way he handled himself against Tennessee last week, fixing things mid-game, as I mentioned earlier, but also really running that offense. He's kind of a steadying force, especially for that offense. He's not going to put up big numbers, and that's really probably why he's, doesn't get the national acclaim in terms of Heisman candidacy, but he really is kind of the cog in that offense that really makes things work. So I've got to give him some credit where credit's due.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I like your pick. I've had him in there before, so I like your pick. I went with Bo Nix at number 5 this week. Just what he's doing out there in Oregon. I think he's got close to 30 passing touchdowns, 2,200 yards passing, and only 3 INTs, bud. And his only blemish on the season, the main loss to Georgia at the start of the season, the blowout loss. But Bo Nix is getting it done there for the Ducks. So quack, 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 Mr. Bo Nix.
Yeah, for sure. I considered Bo Nix and I considered moving Drake May in this week, but I had a couple other names that I wanted to kind of sneak in, Stetson Bennett especially. But yeah, dude, Bo Nix, you recognize it. He's been great.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. All right, moving on. Number 4 in the Heisman stock report, you have Caleb Williams. I got Drake May. Drake May moves up a spot for me.
Yeah, I tried to fit him in, man. I had him, and then I went Bennett, and then I honestly almost dropped Caleb Williams out. I'm going to be completely honest. I almost dropped him out to put either Bo Nix or Drake May in. They've both been great. But in the end, Caleb's still putting up just bonkers numbers in that USC offense. So I ended up sticking with Caleb Williams. But I love your pick of Dre May. You've recognized him throughout the entire process here. He is a phenomenal freshman. He's a name that people are going to know for quite a while in college football.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Drake May as a freshman getting the job done, squeaks out another victory this past week. And the one thing with him, he's got less than a handful of INTs too.
Dude,
as a freshman.
He's so good with the football.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. So
so good with the football.
The drawback for him is the conference that he plays in, and he's a freshman.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, moving on. Number 3, you moved up Blake Corum and Caleb Williams for me. I moved him up.
Yeah. Corum had a great week last week, and like I said earlier, Michigan plays a style of football that Michigan just says, this is our style of football. And that revolves around Blake Corum getting 20 to 30 touches a game, and usually he can pop 140, 150 yards, had a couple 200-yard games this year. So he's the workhorse in that offense. And I felt I needed to recognize that, move him up after an explosive game against Rutgers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Sorry, Blake, you're going to have a shitty week this week against my defense. So you're probably going to be out of Gary's Heisman stock report next week.
Hey, if he has the kind of game you're predicting, he might be.
I hope so, bud. I hope so. Caleb Williams here just moves up a spot. Still getting the job done over there at USC, so can't really fault him. But yeah, lots of passing yards, lots of passing touchdowns for this guy as well too. And he's got the Trojans, there in top 15. So, all right, moving on. Number 2, you have Hendon Hooker, and CJ Stroud stayed the same for me. But Hendon Hooker for you went down a spot, and just, let's hear the reasoning.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough game. He didn't play well. He looked pretty lost at times, but also statistically, it's one of those games that can really hinder a Heisman campaign.
Well, I don't disagree with you, but I would still say that Hendon Hooker has done more than CJ Stroud this year, as in terms of opponents faced, the competition of those opponents, and CJ Stroud had a terrible game as well too against a far lesser opponent. And so that's why CJ Stroud stays at number 2 for me. And Hendon Hooker stays at number 1 for me in my Heisman stock report, Gary.
Yeah, and that's fair, right? The only difference I would say is that CJ Stroud had a bad team and a win. Team record does get considered when it comes to the Heisman. Their stats are kind of similar, fairly similar. Stroud had a bit of a stronger first half of the season, but for me, it's splitting hairs. To be honest, I don't want to spoil a pick later in the season, but I don't know that Stroud finishes the season undefeated, so this could easily flip flop again.
All righty. Yeah, it probably needs to flip flop for you. That's just me. That's me.
Fair. That's fair.
All right, Gary. As we come to a conclusion on this week's episode, any final thoughts, remarks going into this week's slate of games?
Yeah, just keep an eye on kind of what we're seeing from these jostling teams. We mentioned the line from Vegas with LSU against Arkansas, and I'm picking Arkansas to upset them, and we've got that energy, right? That Woo Pig energy. So,
Yeah.
That's a game that certainly has some potential cascading effects in the playoff. Because I mentioned, I don't think there's a way that Clemson gets in. However, a loss by LSU, a loss by TCU, right? Michigan, Ohio State, them splitting that. Those are kind of the chaotic things that Clemson's going to need to get their way back into the picture. I don't think they're a playoff team, but if the playoff committee is going to find a way to put them in, those are the games that they need to see. You mentioned it, every game matters, right? But we're getting to the point where you can't survive losses at this point of the season like you can early in the season. We're looking at an Oregon team that's starting to move back up the polls into the top 10, into the top 8, right? They lost really, really bad to open the season, but they've been a really, really good football team the last few weeks. Now's the time of the season. You can't survive losses. So the playoff picture is starting to come into focus, and we're starting to see teams kind of separate. The cream of the crop starting to separate. Let's see how these things shake out, because if an LSU does drop a game against an Arkansas, that's something that opens the door to a team that you might have thought, hey, their season might be dead. So that's what I love about college football, man. NFL football, great to watch, but college football every week can be absolute chaos, and absolute chaos is so fun to watch.
It is. Absolutely. No, you took the words out of my mouth there with, Arkansas, LSU game, upset alert there, and even Ole Miss, Alabama,
Because you're looking at an Ole Miss team that might be thinking, hey, if LSU drops another game, we might be able to run the table here and have something to say about it.
Absolutely.
TCU, Texas a fucking touchdown favorite.
Yep.
Against the number 4 team in the nation.
Yeah.
Shit's wild.
It is wild, bud.
College football, bud. That's why we love it.
That's exactly. Oh, all right. Well, that does it for another episode of Tailgate Trash Talk. Another great week of college football in the books. Another great slate of college football games coming up this weekend, starting on Friday and continuing on Saturday. Gary, thanks for joining again, bud. Always appreciative. Always. And with that being said, this is another great episode of Tailgate Trash Talk. We are out.